Good morning and welcome to August. How did we get here? Weren't we just writing our intentions for 2024? But here we are. Here we are. Our series this month is Awakening Your Spiritual Power. Now, this time of year, August, is usually traditionally back to school, a season of learning. And so we're going to be discussing all month spiritual learning. Spiritual learning. It's said that learning process is not only construction, but also destruction. And so we're going to be exploring that paradox this month, along with learning through suffering and also living in infinite possibility. So I hope you can be with us all month as Reverend Lee and I waltz through this time together. And today's talk is Breaking the Habit of Being You. Now, it's not based on the book. I just like the title. But we're going to be looking at the deconstruction process this morning. So I want you to take a moment and just think about your life and think about any habit that you may have that perhaps no longer serves you, that you would like to be different, to change. Most of us have something, whether it's something little, some little thing, or perhaps it's something large that we would like to change. Whether, we got health, we got fitness, we got eating styles, we've got thoughts, finances, ways of being, judgmental attitudes, habitual thinking about certain things, reactions to certain things that happen. Any of those that can be considered habitual patterns in our lives, anything at all that you might just like to have show up a little differently for you. The question is, how do we deconstruct that habit? How do we do that? Anybody ever tried to change a habit and failed? Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? It's very frustrating when that happens. I've seen folks for years work on addictions, trying to let them go year after year after year. Folks diet and work out and get physically fit only to go back into the old eating patterns and gain all the weight back. The process of deconstructing habits of thinking and being can be some of the most challenging work that we do in our spiritual lives. Most of us, when we came into this teaching, didn't think in new thought terms, did we? And when you first hear change your thinking, change your life, it's like, well, great. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But it's not always the easiest thing to know what we're thinking about, because we have a lot of thoughts. What's that number? 60, 70,000 million, whatever the number is, thoughts a day. It's hard to keep up with all of them. And then we got that thing called the subconscious, where there's a lot more of them going on, and we're not even aware of what's going on there. So it can pose challenges for us, because where do habits live? In the subconscious, right? In the subconscious. If we struggle with letting go of these negative physical habits, how do we change or break the habit of thinking and being when we discover that that's no longer serving me on my spiritual journey any longer? I don't want to have, be, do that any longer. I think the physical change and the spiritual change are really the same thing. It's the same process. Consider, science tells us that approximately every 7 years, every cell in our body regenerates. So every 7 years, there's a new me. There's a new you, right? Brand new baby cells. So how come we generally look the same every 7 years, even though our cells are only 7 years old? I, for one, would like to have the skin of a 7-year-old child. I think that would be like really cool. Wouldn't have these age spots and all that stuff. It's like, why are those there if I get new cells every 7 years? Could it be that we've bought into universal consciousness that says, that's the way it is? You age and this is what happens. X years equals this form. Are our minds that powerful? In the science of mind, we affirm the Jesus teaching that it is done to us as we believe. Do you believe that negative habits are difficult to change? Do you believe that addiction is difficult to release? Think back on that thing that you just thought about that was the habit that you might like to be different in your life. Why haven't you changed it yet? Have you tried and failed? Is it just too difficult? How can we deconstruct that? Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living that we are part of, and he's the author of the Science of Mind textbook that we teach from. In the text, he says, as we think, we subjectify thought and set law in motion through the medium of the universal mind. This law works automatically until it is consciously changed. To learn how to think is to learn how to live. It's one of my favorite Holmes quotes. To learn how to think is to learn how to live. Because our thoughts go into a medium that is infinite in its ability to be and to do. We are using a power which is infinite as compared with the power of our finite, small, conscious mind. We're using this infinite power. As I read through that, I would clarify that to say that we're learning to think from our spiritual center, that place of God stuff that exists within each of us, that spark of life itself that we all have, that's never been harmed or hurt, that is whole, perfect, and complete. It requires that we learn to pay attention to what we're habitually thinking and to notice if those thoughts do or do not support us in our upward evolution of life. Our habits of thought are ours alone. Not something that's imposed on us from outside. It's something that we've said yes to. The things that we think, the things that we put into our subconscious are things that we have said yes to. And we hold on to them until we consciously recognize that's not working for me anymore, and I need to turn that thought around. I need to turn that idea, change that belief around. At some point, we said yes to those thoughts. At some point, we may have said no to some thoughts. We have those too, right? No, that's not for me. That's not for me. For example, the habit of smoking. I started smoking when I was 18 years old. Up until then, I had said no, not for me. I remember distinctly the first cigarette I ever picked up was the nastiest thing on the planet. Ah! Why did I pick up a second one? Why did I pick up a second one? I consciously chose to do that. Well, you see, I was also dealing with an unconscious manifestation. I had unconsciously changed my eating habits and had put on 40 pounds in about 6 weeks that I didn't accept and couldn't lose. And I happened to be visiting a cousin who was smoking and who had lost just a lot of weight recently and said cigarettes were her miracle cure for smoking. I said, I'll have me some of that. And I was committed to smoke. And I started smoking. And I lost the weight. Then I had to make a choice about the cigarettes, right? And what I was going to do with that whole thing. Realized it wasn't something that was serving me. So as I look back on that experience and think about why did I do that, it's a lot like the story of David and Goliath. David, little guy, Goliath, big giant. King says somebody needs to slay this giant and save the army and save my kingdom. And whoever does will win the princess, my daughter's hand in marriage. David goes, giant, slayer, princess husband. I want the princess. I'll slay this guy. No problem. I'll do it. He didn't care about saving the army. He didn't care about the kingdom. He wanted the princess. I didn't care about smoking. I didn't want to do that. to lose the weight. And I was looking for an easy, quick fix, right? So now here I am deciding that this doesn't serve me and I need to get rid of it. Through much trial and error, I realized that I had to mentally let it go first. I had to mentally choose and get comfortable with releasing that habit and my Whiting and Davis smoking case and my gold lighter and my crystal ashtray and my coffee breaks with my girlfriends and all the stuff we create around the habits that we have, right? So when I could mentally get myself to letting go, then I could physically let go. And in working with this material this week, it really anchored me even more deeply in this teaching that we create first in mind before we ever see it in form. The mental creation in our minds, the mental picture, the mental equivalent that we create is that's our pre-treatment work. That's what we do before we ever say our first prayer treatment, get prayer with a practitioner, whatever. We have to know in our mind clearly what it is we are accepting in that treatment. And sometimes we get it backwards. We want to treat to let go of the habit. It's like, no, I need to be who I want to be in my mind without that habit before I can treat to know that it's released and get my prayer support to know it's released. Ernest Holmes suggests, as we replace fear with faith in God and in the law, we engage the law of attraction, which will draw to us the desires of our hearts. But the new patterns must become habitual in order to crowd out the old ones. Now, I had a delightful experience on Friday of this week, demonstrating this crowding out of patterns. Works both ways, by the way, positive and negative. On Friday, I received a negative medical report. Went into the doctor Friday morning for my annual wellness confirmation checkup. Everything's fine. I get home about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I get a phone call from the doctor, jumping up and down, that I have to go to the emergency room. Oh my gosh, I got your test results back. You've got to go to the emergency room. And I went, what? You've got to go. You've got to go. I checked in with myself and I went, I'm fine. I denied it. Nah, I'm fine. Test is wrong. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. A couple hours later, she calls back again. You're still home? You're not in the emergency room? Yeah. Well, I got other test results, and they're even worse. You've got to go to the emergency room now. This is life-threatening. Deny. Not true. Called my 911 prayer buddies. Got to have prayer right now for this. Fix it. And I sat and I went, this is crazy. I'm fine. I don't have time to go over there. I'm good. Check in. I'm good. Well, then the fear committee showed up. Anybody have a fear committee? Yeah. First thought, ooh, the doctor called herself. Not the nurse. The doctor. Not once, but twice. This must be serious. Then I thought about my first cousin that I just found out had a stroke last week, and he's 1 month younger than me. Then I went, wow, you're about to be 65 years old. That's old. Oh my gosh. You just signed up for Medicare, for goodness sake. What are you thinking? Get your tail over to the emergency room. So the fear committee won, and I went. 2 hours and $300 later, they confirmed my good health. The blood test was wrong. So, fear committee. I was in my faith. I knew. I checked in body, mind, soul. I knew. I had my prayer team working on it. I knew. But the fear committee jostled me out of my faith, and I went. I went. And when I got home, I was very angry with myself for doing that. And I asked, how do we develop the spiritual courage in the face of conditions, in the face of appearances, to stand in that faith, to stay in that faith? Now, you've heard Reverend Lee and I say a lot that Spirit always gives us. We get to live our talks before we give them, but this one was a bit excessive, even for me. But what are you thinking? What is your truth? What areas of life do you allow fear to creep in, to crowd your faith out from what you know is true? We have a knowing sense within us. How do we develop the spiritual courage to stay strong in our faith in light of appearances? That was Jesus' teaching. Judge not by appearances. That's what he's talking about. As long as we hold on to fear and negative thinking, we're in bondage. We are not living a free life. The Science of Mind says, the tendency of the subconscious thought is set in motion by the conscious thought. And in this lies the possibility of and the pathway to freedom. Freedom and bondage, sickness and health, poverty and riches, heaven and hell, any condition which appears to be an opposite are really the operation of not the operation of opposing powers, but are the way the one power is used. Remember Glinda in The Wizard of Oz? Dorothy just lands in Munchkin Land, and Glinda comes down all beautiful in her gown. She says, well, are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? How will you use your power? That's our question, isn't it? How will we use our power? Holmes goes on in the same quote to say, we are bound because we are first free, and the power which binds us is the only thing in the universe which can free us. We already have within us the key to freedom, but we must come to realize our relation to the whole, and this relationship is one of complete unity. The power is our word, the power is our thought, and our use of the law to control the conditions of our lives. Science of Mind teaches us about oneness. It teaches us about God. God in us, as us, through us, as our lives. And Jesus taught that each of us is an individualized center of God's consciousness. Each one of us. True then, true before then, true now, true forever. We are each an individualized center of God consciousness. And we also come equipped with the freedom to choose in our lives how we're going to use our power. In the book of Luke, Jesus said, the light of the body is the eye. When your eye is single, your whole body also is full of light. But when your eye is evil, your body also is full of darkness. Now, he's not necessarily talking about our physical body, but about our view of life. Do we have a single view of life? You know, when you're staring at something, everything else kind of gets blurred around it. Everything kind of blurs into the background because you're focused, right? And that's what he's talking about, is this single eye vision of our lives, of our good, of the new habit, of the mental equivalent we've now created. Our single-mindedness about that. Many of the motivational writers and teachers talk about that burning desire, a single-minded focus. This comes from the teaching of Jesus, that we keep our focus on what we want. Holmes says, turn away from that which you don't want. Stay focused on what you do want. We teach in our prosperity, what we focus on expands. So all of this is the same idea, that when we get so scattered and we allow so many distractions, that we're losing that single-eyed focus. And we're creating the darkness because there's no single. What's the thing in science that they've done studies on now with multitasking, right? Multitasking does a disservice to everyone. The person doing the tasking and everyone around them, because nothing is focused. Everything is scattered. So that, again, is the same idea that we're talking about here. So with our busy lifestyles, it can prove challenging when we're trying to change a habitual behavior because we get distracted. Let's say we're doing a new food plan and it's going really great. And then we get out and about and we get busy and we forget to take our lunch and I'm starving and oh my gosh, now I've got to go through the fast food. One fast food's not going to kill us, but it takes our eye off our goal, doesn't it? It takes our eye off our goal. We're no longer single focused on what's healthy. So when we're deconstructing these habits that no longer serve us, we must keep our eye single, turning away from the old habit towards the new life that we have created in our mind, the new life that we want to experience, the new life that we're calling in. We turn away. And once we've shifted our consciousness from needing that habit to releasing that habit, we can then use the power of our imagination to further enhance and improve that vision, to keep building on it, and to call in our prayer support so that we can release that which doesn't serve us with ease and with grace. We let it go. When we don't maintain that single eye, we usually get distracted and fall back in those old patterns. Like a rubber band, it's easier to not get stretched. And changing habits stretches us, doesn't it? So this week I invite you to turn away from that habit that you brought to mind earlier and to maintain your single eye towards your goal. So if you would like to study these life-changing principles, I invite you to sign up for Mindful Monday. It's a newsletter I send out on Monday mornings. That's a recap of our talk. You can sign up with the QR code, send an email, or in the lobby, and we'll send that out to you. It gives you everything that we've talked about here today, as well as this practice that we're going to talk about. So your practice is deconstruct the habit. Deconstruct the habit, the one that you thought of this morning. This is a deeper spiritual practice. So think about the habit that you've been meaning to change. Spend time contemplating its benefits in your life. How does this habit benefit me? Why did I take it on? Why did I choose, or did I unconsciously choose to do it? Why is that? Remember when you started. Was it a conscious or an unconscious choice? My cigarettes were conscious. My food was unconscious. So we have lots of both in our lives, do we not? Then, after you do that part two is contemplate your life without it. Build that mental equivalent. How would you feel? How would you look? How would your life change? What would be different? What would be better? Why would you want to change it in the first place? Journal about your process and see if you can begin to move your mind into acceptance of that new picture and of the letting go. It has to happen in mind first. Meditate on that every day until you feel clear and ready to release it. And then let it go. Then let it go. Daniel mentioned we have prayer support. Our prayer requests are on the front table in the lobby. If you are considering taking this challenge, I invite you to complete a prayer request. The three of us will take it with us and support you in prayer this week as you move through your process. So that's available to you if you would like. We'll close this morning with a quote from Ernest, who says, "We need to break through our habitual thought patterns, which repeat themselves with monotonous regularity, and recognize that every wrong condition, every limitation, is an argument of habitual thought patterns against our greater freedom." What habits are keeping you from your greater freedom? So it is. And it is your turn. We open the mic for questions or comments or complaints or whatever's on your heart. Anyone?
Yeah, Joe, what was the secret for you to lose weight? Since you didn't smoke anymore, right?
Oh, when I quit smoking,
Yeah. So how did you accomplish that?
I changed lifestyle. I was working in retail and working a lot of long hours and just didn't have time to eat really. And I changed a mindset from eating to live, to living to eat, to eating to live. And I ate when I was hungry, just as little as I wanted. And I didn't really watch what that was. Now, I will say over time that created some bad habits too. And I've done a new food plan again starting last October where I've become meat free. And so that's a whole other mindset shift and change. So it's all up here though. Thank you, Daniel. Anyone else? All right. We'll pray it out. Oops, all over the microphone. So, would you join me in prayer this morning? Oh, so as we go within and just take a cleansing breath, relax our bodies, bringing our awareness fully present into this moment in recognition of the infinite presence that is in, through, and as each of us, in, through, and as this room, the air we breathe, the beat of our heart, all that is this divine source and substance, the presence, the essence, universal energy, life itself, the reality in which we live, move, and have our being. That is the divine. And as we unify ourselves with this, remembering who we are as the divine beings of light, those centers of consciousness, of God consciousness that each of us is, that divine spark that illuminated our life, the coming together of two opposite cells to create this beautiful human form that we each inhabit. We are life expressing more than our bodies, more than our minds. We are spirit in form. And so this day, I recognize our infinite ability and imagination that is the divine within us, that allows us to create the mental picture, awareness, equivalent feelings of the better life, higher life, expanded life that we are each growing into as we move through this thing called life. The expansion, the eternal expansion that we each take on a moment by moment basis. I know that each of us has the spiritual courage to take the next step, to breathe into this power, to speak our word, to keep our thoughts single-eyed on that which is our next goal and expression of life. I know that as we move through this week, that those that choose to take the challenge of deconstructing habits that no longer serve, that each one is supported by this prayer team in this community, by spirit and the law of our own being, as we confidently move forward in releasing, letting go, and becoming our yet again greater self in that continued expansion and upward spiral. I know for anyone that has anything on their heart this morning, they seek prayer around as they lift it into their consciousness, that we take it and hold it in ours as well. Knowing that we are united in the unity and wholeness that is God, we accept the manifestation, knowing that the full and complete manifestation is already there. It's already there. It is already done. And so it's with a grateful heart that I accept this manifestation of this prayer and the prayer in each and everyone's heart this morning, allowing it to be, releasing it into the action and activity of law, knowing that it's done. It's so. There's nothing else to do but let it be. And so it is.